So guys, it's Christian Parker's very first time calling defensive plays, right? And coming off literally the worst defense in the entire NFL, not just the NFC, the whole league. Nobody is believing that this first-year coordinator can actually compete. Look, as fans, we're always optimistic and hopeful, but we can't overlook what the actual situation is here. So let me break down this Cowboys defense position by position, compare it against the entire NFC East, since that's our direct competition, and I'll also throw in some trade targets that I genuinely believe Dallas should consider before week 1. What's up, Cowboys? Welcome to the NFL Playbook. Cowboys, if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Guys, I want to start by just acknowledging something. Christian Parker didn't just walk into a simple situation. He came in, he inherited a defense that was getting shredded every single week, and now everyone's watching to see if he can actually turn this thing around. And I think the fairest way to evaluate where this defense stands is to go position by position and stack it up against Philly, New York, and Washington, because those are the teams we have to beat twice a year, right? So let's start there. So first is cornerback, and the Cowboys are rolling with DaRon Bland, Siobhan Revel, Kobe Durant, and Devin Moore. Now, I also want to throw Caleb Downs into this conversation, and I know some of you are already typing in the comments, he's a safety, not a corner. And look, technically you're right, he is a safety, but he plays the nickel. And when we're comparing position groups across the NFC East, every other team's nickel player is being counted in their corner group. So to keep this comparison fair, Caleb Downs is going in here, and honestly, it doesn't even matter what label you put on him. The point is, when Caleb Downs is on that football field, he makes this entire secondary better. Like, he's genuinely one of those players that the minute he steps out there, you feel it. And that's something Washington, New York, and even Philly can't really match in that slot position. And DaRon Bland has proven himself over the last 2 years. Kobe Durant gives you insurance if something goes sideways with injuries. The concern is health, right? We got to see these guys actually stay on the field. Now compare that to what Philadelphia has. Kenyon Mitchell, Reek Woolen, Cooper DeJean. Honestly, Philly is #1 at corner, and it's not really close. They just have too much talent there. But here's where it gets interesting. Washington has Trey Amos, Mike Senristil, Amik Robertson. New York has Greg Newsome, Paulson Adebo, and Drew Phillips. And honestly, when I look at those names, I'll take Dallas second in this division at corner. Bland is more proven than anyone Washington or New York has put out there recently. And with Caleb Downs in the slot, the Cowboys actually have a real weapon that those other teams don't have. So corner, Cowboys are second in the NFC East. Not bad, but Philly is still ahead. Now moving into safety, and honestly, this whole division is kind of meh at this position. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend any of these teams have some elite safety group. Philadelphia has Andrew Mukaba and Marcus Epps. Washington has Will Harris and Nick Cross. New York has Javon Holland and Tyler Nubin. And the Cowboys have Jalen Thompson as the anchor. I mean, Jalen Thompson might genuinely be the best safety in this entire division. And if you count Caleb Downs as a safety, which, you know, he plays that slot role, then the Cowboys are clearly #1 here. I'm putting Dallas first at safety, Philly second, Washington third, New York fourth. And honestly, nobody should fight you too hard on that. Then the interior defensive line, because this is where things start getting really fun for the Cowboys. Dallas has Quinnen Williams, Kenny Clark, and then guys like Otito Ogbonia, LT Overton, and Jonathan Bullard competing for that third spot. Quinnen Williams is a stud, period. I don't want to hear any debate on that. And Kenny Clark, look, I know people want to debate how good he actually is, but the man is solid. He's pretty good. And when you pair him next to Quinnen Williams, that's a strong foundation. Philadelphia counters with Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and Moro Ojomo. And look, I'll be honest, Philly is still #1 here because their depth at that third spot is better than ours right now. But Dallas is a close second. Washington has Donald Payne, Javon Kinlaw, Tim Settle, and Jazan Newton. New York has DJ Reader, Shelby Harris, and Roy Robertson Harris. My order: Philly, Dallas, Washington, New York. And I think most people would agree with that breakdown. Now, here's where I need to talk about the edge rushers, because this is honestly the biggest question mark on this entire defense. And this is where Christian Parker really needs to go get somebody before week 1. The Cowboys have Rashawn Gary, Donovan Ezeuruaku, Malachi Lawrence, Sam Williams, and James Houston. And look, I like what we had developing there. I really do. But when you stack it up against the rest of the division, New York has Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau. That group is honestly the best edge group in the NFC East right now. Washington has Odafe Owe, Kalavon Chasen, Dorrance Armstrong. That's a solid group too. Philadelphia has Nolan Smith, Jonathan Greenard, Jalix Hunt, Arnold Ebiketie. And then you've got Dallas. I mean, I love Rashawn Gary. I think he's more proven than people are giving him credit for. And don't just look at the sack numbers, because that's not the full picture. But as a whole group right now, the Cowboys are 4th at edge rusher in this division. And I think being honest about that is actually important. So clearly, we are at number 2 overall. I mean, if we want to lead the division, we need more pieces. This is where trade targets come in. And the name I keep coming back to is Jadeveon Clowney. Guys, I know. Hear me out. Clowney had a 16.7% win rate last year. That's better than almost every other pass rusher available on the market right now. He was solid against the run. He showed interest in coming back. And look, if the Cowboys can get him at a reasonable number, you have to make that call. Imagine Clowney and Rashawn Gary as your 2 big athletic pass rushers, and then Azir and Malachi Lawrence as your young guys developing behind them. That's a completely different conversation at edge rusher. That's a group that can actually compete. Another name I want to throw out there is Haason Reddick. Now, he has history with Christian Parker, and that matters. Reddick had 8 pressures against Atlanta early last season, and he can still win as a wide 9 pass rusher in a 2-point stance. He's not your run defender, but here's the thing. The Cowboys already have run defenders. They've got Rashawn Gary. They've got Ezzy Uwaku. What they need is guys who can get after the quarterback. Reddick in the right scheme, and that scheme being Christian Parker's scheme, could still do damage. And then there's Joey Bosa, who had a 15.6% win rate last year, 30 hurries, 47 pressures. He's not a full-time guy anymore, but on obvious passing situations, that man can still win. On a 1-year deal, somewhere around that $10 million range, I think you do it. Now let's talk linebacker, because honestly, this is probably the most painful position to discuss for Cowboys fans right now. Dallas has DeMarvion Overshown, D. Winters, and Jayshawn Barham. New York has Tremaine Edmonds and Arvell Reese. Philadelphia has Zach Vaughn and Jihad Campbell, and honestly, Jihad Campbell is a really good player. Washington has Sonny Styles, Leo Chenal, and Frankie Louvu. I mean, look, Cowboys are 4th at linebackers in this division. I don't think you can argue that right now. Washington might actually be the 1st when you look at that full group together. Then Philly, then New York, then Dallas, and that's just where we are. We need to see it on the field before we can say otherwise. So here's the bigger picture. When you add it all up, corner, safety, interior line, edge, linebacker, the Cowboys aren't the best defense in the NFC East right now, and I think it's important we say that out loud. Philly is still built extremely well defensively. New York has a scary edge group, but here's what actually gives me hope about this Cowboys defense. It's Christian Parker. Look, when you hear every single player talking about how this guy quizzes them, how complex the scheme is, how different the energy is, that's not nothing. That's real. And what Christian Parker is potentially bringing is a schematical advantage that could make average players perform above their level. That's the job of a great coordinator. It's not just about the names on the roster. It's about putting those names in positions to succeed, disguising coverages, creating confusion, doing things that the previous staff just wasn't doing. We saw what happened in Miami with Mike Macdonald. That defense didn't have the biggest names, but they played as one unit and it worked. Now, I'm not saying Christian Parker is automatically there in year 1. We got to see it. We got to see these guys actually executed on Sundays. But I will say this, if Dallas goes out and adds one more proven pass rusher before week 1, whether that's Jadeveon Clowney or Joey Bosa or Haason Reddick, and this defense plays with the kind of discipline and scheme complexity that Christian Parker has been installing all offseason, we might be having a very different conversation by week 8. That's what I'm watching for. That's why I'm genuinely locked in on this Cowboys defense heading into the season. Let me know in the comments, do you think Christian Parker can make this the best defense in the NFC East, or is it going to take another year? Drop it below, and I'll see you in the next one.